You're on mute.
There we are. Better put that on again. I was going to say that always timed out perfectly, and I make sure I turn this bloody thing off too. Stop. Where are we? There we go. It'd be nice if it had an automatic fade on that sort of, but it doesn't. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Full Course Yellow, our Wednesday night chat. Fairly quiet tonight. Not a lot of news about. Obviously, the big news from today has been the official announcement that Honda are getting on board with Aston Martin, and we'll talk about that. I'm sure Pete's got some ideas about what's happening there, so we'll be talking about that with him in just a moment. Apart from that, locally, not a lot sort of happening after the weekend at Symmons Plains. It was it was a meeting. It was a meeting. So anyway, let's find out what's been happening. Let's join a small crew tonight. We've got Pete and we've got Stuart with us tonight. I think Doc starts at 3:00 in the morning tomorrow. So so I think he's having a very early night, and who knows what happens with Richard will be getting ready, of course, for this weekend down at Phillip Island. He's racing the Excel in the Victorian State Circuit Racing Championship down at the island on the weekend. So I'm sure he's getting everything ready there.
3 a.m. Isn't that when people go to bed?
It's around that time. It's certainly when I go to bed. I mean, that's it. Although I've got a couple of early starts coming up over the weekend. I've got to just figured out that to get the start for the job, the gig I've got on Sunday morning, I'm going to have to leave here at 4:30. So not happy about that, because yes, that is much closer to the time that I would normally go to bed rather than the time I get up. Let's say hello to a few people.
Thank you for the money.
We've got Paul Vander Acker is with us again. Evening race fans. Yes, historic Winton and Phillip Island out for me. Box saying, "Hey, Box, you're not on your own. Let me tell you, I'm still getting used to the new time and day, and it's not easy at the moment. It's a bit early for me, and but this Mad Cow Mark is joining us once again, and also to SB as well. Evening, guys. So we've got a few people in to have a chat. If you've got anything you want to raise, if you've got any comments, of course, as per usual, just put them up in the comments, and we'll get onto them during the show. As Stuart, what is the meal tonight?
Just fish and chips. Oven fried stuff. Just oven fried stuff.
There you are. I actually had that the other night. I had it in the air fryer. I've had the air fryer for nearly 2 years now, and I only actually started using it about 6 weeks ago. And it's actually works quite well.
Yeah, one of the young blokes at work has got one of those. He raves about it.
Yeah, it certainly does. It certainly does a good job. So, and it's very good for that sort of thing. If you've got your frozen fish and chips and that sort of thing, it does a really good job. Does pork chops really well. Pork chops, it does a lovely job. You put nice crackling on them, and yeah.
Yuck. Sorry, I don't eat pig or sheep.
Oh, they're the best. They're the best. They're the best things out there. They taste the best.
You want to see me projectile vomit? Feed me lamb. It lasts about 2 minutes.
We'll bear that in mind. I mean, that could come in handy one day.
But you need a bucket and you need lots of fish at the start of the film.
Yeah, well, speaking of which, I've got sort of similar problems. There's another reason why it might be a short show tonight. But anyway, let's get on to what has been happening. We'll fire up the banner. As I said, not a lot of news, but the main story, of course, that we didn't get a chance to look at when we recorded last night's episode of In Pit Lane, which you'll see tomorrow, is Honda have announced that they're joining Aston Martin in Formula One. It has been rumoured for a little while, but. It's really strange. You don't know what's happening with Honda. I mean, they sort of pulled out, but they didn't, and then they sort of came back, but they didn't, and now they're sort of with Aston Martin, but possibly aren't. Who knows? Pete, what do we know about this?
I know that all is forgiven with Fernando Alonso. They've forgiven Fernando Alonso.
Yes, he wasn't particularly complimentary about about
when it was,
about in the McLaren days, was he?
no. And I read something about they're going to develop eco-friendly fuels or something to go with the package.
Yeah, that seems to be the driving point at the moment. They're saying that they can use it to sort of try and develop eco-friendly fuels, and it seems to be the big gimmick at the moment. I know Porsche are very, very heavily invested in this whole sort of synthetic fuel thing in order to basically to try and keep the internal combustion engine alive, because I think they see the limitations of in some respects for electric cars, particularly in a motorsport environment. They're certainly fast enough, as we've seen, but in terms of being something you want to go and watch and actually listen to, they're fairly dull. I mean, it doesn't matter how fast they are and how good the racing is. I mean, I can't get into Formula E. That noise is
it doesn't have enough sound. It's like the difference between Formula One with V10s and Formula One with turbo V6s.
Bad enough. Yeah, Formula One's bad enough at the moment. I mean, I don't know about you, Pete, but at the Grand Prix, I was absolutely disgusted with the sound of the Formula 2 and Formula 3 cars, and the supercars for that matter, and the Carrera Cup. They all sounded way better than Formula One did.
I'm used to it now because I've been going for a few years since those engines came in. But the Formula 2 and Formula 3 were much better than the Formula 1s.
They actually sounded like racing cars. Yeah, so it's interesting that Honda are coming back. I don't know. There's very light on details at the moment. Honda have said that they never stopped developing their Formula One technology and their power unit. They've said they've continued sort of pushing on. And of course, Red Bull have their own power unit, which will be branded by Ford. So I don't know where this new engine is being made, whether it's being made in England or Japan or where it's actually coming from. But it's going to be interesting because one of the things that usually comes with a contract from Honda is the demand that there's at least there's a Japanese driver, and I've already seen it raise the fact that Yuki Tsunoda is being sort of already spoken about in the Japanese media as somebody that they would be very keen to see behind the wheel of the Aston Martin, which means that, does it come down to a case of the boss's son or Fernando Alonso? But we've got a couple of years, so, who knows whether Fernando will still be around at that time.
I think 26, he'll be getting on a bit. So I think
Fernando wins a race this year. He wins the championship next year, then he'll retire.
I don't know. I think Fernando is just the sort of person that now that he's got so much form,
and he loves the car.
Well, he loves the car and he loves winning, and his passion for motorsport hasn't diminished in the least. I think that if he's got a chance of winning more races and perhaps even winning another championship. He will hang around until they've got a wedge him out of the car.
If Aston get him on the top of the podium at least once this year, next year he wins the championship.
Yeah, but by 2026, when all this is happening, he'll be getting on a bit. So I think it'll be him that they consider replacing. Yeah.
And that mightn't be a bad, when you look at it, it mightn't be a bad sort of lineup. I mean, for all of the criticism that, that Stoll gets, he's not a bad driver, and Yuki Tsunoda is definitely improving. Yeah. So it might be very handy in the lineup.
Honda could do a tie-in like they've done in the past, but do as a driver training. Imagine the opportunities of having trained or coached by Fernando Alonso for a new driver.
That's what I think that was.
They would get so much money thrown at them.
I think that was one of the things that the Toyota were very keen about with the sports car thing, that he would be a mentor and that he would, and in sports car racing, I think that they probably had the idea that he could probably stick around until his late 40s or even into his, even to the point where he got to 50 in that sort of, in endurance racing. But and I think that probably Alpine had a similar idea for him. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that goes. But we've now got, with them now putting up their hand and saying yes, we're hanging around. So we've now got Ford, Honda, Mercedes, Ferrari. Mercedes, Ferrari. Who else have we got? We've got Alpine, Renault, so through Alpine. So there's a few manufacturers involved, and then you take a look over at what's happening at Le Mans, and you've got Ferrari and Cadillac and Toyota and Honda are already involved through Acura. BMW are testing their car in Europe, their IMSA GTP car, so they're testing that over there. Rumours that it'll be interesting to see what happens. There are rumours that at Le Mans in a couple of weeks' time that Hyundai will put up their hand and make an announcement for 2026.
Well, their N program is pretty popular, especially with younger buyers. So why wouldn't they leverage that, like use it for more publicity?
Well, they're also very keen on hydrogen, always have been, and that's the rules. And the ACO, they've delayed the rules, but they've already said that they hope to have a dedicated hydrogen category for 2025 or 2026. So that might be the sort of point. If they're going to run with that, Hyundai could put up their hand for that and say, okay, we're going to get involved.
If there's hydrogen as a category, I'd expect Mazda to be putting their hand up and say, can we run our rotaries again? Because they've had a program for rotaries running hydrogen for decades. It's not something new from them.
Yeah, well, they recently filed...
Apparently, it actually suits the motor rather well.
They actually filed a new patent just recently. A couple of magazines and press outlets were pointing out that they had a very small high efficiency rotary engine being used as basically a generator to power an electric motor. So that and they said that would run on, quote, alternative fuel. So whether that could possibly be sort of some sort of hydrogen power there, who knows? But
think about what the 787B sounded like. And then think of just a rotary screaming its head off, even as just the generator for an EV-based race car. That could fix the problems with the sound.
Well, you could sort of flip it. I mean, at the moment in Le Mans, you've got the primary motivation of those cars, and same with Formula One. The primary motivation is the ICE engine. And you've got the boost coming from the hybrid. But you could flip that around where the primary motivation will be the electric, and then you get an extra boost from the internal combustion engine.
Yeah.
So, then as you say, you get the noise, and you get plenty of power as well, and use a little internal combustion engine like the Chevy Volt did. That didn't work terribly well, but it was the first sort of iteration of that sort of thing.
It didn't work in sales because it was ugly. The technology behind it was still pretty good. It's just the car was quite ugly.
Joining us, we'll just say hello to a couple of people. Mark Goldsmith joining us. G'day, Mark. How are you? Over in South Australia. Well, good to see you. You're running around. Mark races the Elfin over there, the 400 in historic racing. Hopefully, we'll see you around. I don't know if you're over for historic Winton, but perhaps for the Festival of Speed coming up later, and perhaps even again if you're doing Baskerville again. Looks like we're doing Baskerville again ourselves this year, so that'll be. So that'll be good. We've got boxers saying Fernando will be 45, 6. So he's a kid. So there you go. Man cow, no Doc. Just when I had a question for you, you could run it past us. You could run it past us, Mark, and we could have a try at it. But
I will need to chime in with the obvious line of Doc being very questionable.
Yes. So
okay. Come on, it's obvious. It needs to be said.
there. And also saying congratulations to young riders overseas. Senna Aguirre, I've probably messed up the last name. First in
Aegis.
Moto. Aegis, is it? First in Moto 2. Jason Rollstone fourth, race 1. Second in race 2, junior moto. Archie McDonald fourth, junior GP stock. So, yeah, so we also had a couple of good performances in karts as well over the weekend, and some of the kids in Formula 4 in Great Britain were doing well also. So there's lots and lots of kids overseas. I mean, and they're all taking that that approach that Oscar Piastri and mate Hugh Barter and everyone else has taken now. They're not doing anything in Australia. They're just getting straight out of karts in Australia and just shooting straight across to Europe, which is the only way to go if you want a career in Europe. If you're not there by the time you're about 16, you're probably not going to get anywhere.
Yeah, you're more likely to progress forward from karts in Europe into an open wheel seat than open wheel here in such a closed environment to get to a European drive.
Yeah, I mean the only reason you'd stay here is like some of the kids that we've had on the show who have just said, no, I want to be a supercar driver. So if you want to be a supercar driver, hang around here.
Yeah.
But if you want anything else, just shoot. If you can afford it, just shoot off overseas. And that's the problem. So many people can't afford it. But anyway, so not, as I said, not a lot to talk about really. The French government seeking talks to try and get the French Grand Prix back on the agenda again. Of course, the French government have got all sorts of problems of their own, apart from far more important than the French Grand Prix. But it's probably
they need something to distract the people.
Yeah. But
let them eat cake.
I'm sorry, but Paul Ricard wasn't exactly a good distraction. There was too much runoff too.
Yeah, I think the problem is it's the lack of a suitable venue over there because Paul Ricard is safe and nobody liked Magny-Cours. People actually do like. Sorry, Pete.
It was in the middle of nowhere and.
Yeah, I know people. I know people over there. When we were over there for Le Mans a few times, we spoke to a lot of French journalists and became quite friendly with them. And they all said, "Oh, have you been to Magny-Cours?" And I was like, "No." Oh, it is. And even the French hated it. Oh, it is a terrible place to go to. And everybody actually likes the area that Paul Ricard is in. But it's really, really hard to get it. It really is sort of almost, it's one road in and one road out. And the traffic jams are just, impossible. There's very little accommodation around the place that's sort of accessible. So that's going to be the problem.
Version of Phillip Island.
It is a little bit. I mean, it's, that's why one of the problems for supercars at Phillip Island that Tony Cochrane always said. He said if you take this circuit and dump it, he said somewhere sort of like 45 minutes from Melbourne, with some public transport and all. He said the best circuit in Australia, but he just hated it. And he said all the corporates hated it as well. He said because he said there was nowhere. They felt there was nowhere sort of up to their lofty standards to stay. They didn't like they thought there was lack of opportunities for, for nighttime entertainment, and they just hated it.
Wow, they've never been to the right pub.
Yeah. Yes, as Mad Cow Mark saying, lots of live free motorsport on the weekends on YouTube. Every weekend. I mean, we put links to some. Of course, you had the Nürburgring 24-hour on the weekend, and went to Ferrari, the Frigadelli team with Earl Bamber. So it seems very strange to talk about Earl Bamber winning in anything other than a Porsche, but it was a great performance by Earl. It was a good race. I mean, the Ferrari sort of dominated towards the end. Really, I mean, they seemed to be fairly comfortable, but it wasn't that far distance between first and second. But yeah, it was a good race, and I sat there. I watched that and flicked over to a bit of Santa Pod drag racing and a few other things. I think there's probably something else from Santa Pod coming up this week. I know there's plenty of American drag racing popping up over the course of the weekend, and of course we've got all with Formula One back at Monaco and in the Indy 500.
There's only one problem with Santa Pod. The only problem with Santa Pod is it's the only drag racing in the UK. How can you have that many people who are into racing everything on the streets and not have more facilities?
Yeah, well, I mean, you can say that about New South Wales as well. I mean, it's the main thing I don't like. The only thing I don't like about the coverage at Santa Pod, and if you've seen it, and I'm sure you'll agree with me, Stuart, is the fact that they do not respect the concept of not crossing the line in terms of their cameras. I mean, in the space of 4 cameras, they're all on different sides. So you've got cars coming this way, and then in the same race they're coming that way, and then they go back that way again. It's like, oh, what are you doing?
Yeah, until you've watched like 10, 15 minutes, and then it's sort of, oh, okay, yeah, I know where the cameras are now. So yes, this is the next part of the race.
Put up with it.
Are they playing a different race halfway through?
It looks like that. It's very jarring when you're used to it. But I notice they do it in the footy now as well. I watched the footy the other night and got very confused at one stage because they actually went from one side of somebody lining up for goal, and then suddenly they were over on the other side of the. And he was kicking from right to left, and then the next thing he's kicking from left to right in the same as he's running into kick, and it was like what the. But that seems to be the fashion now. It's like, it's like, what do you mean crossing the line? Who cares? Drives me mad. But anyway.
It drives most people mad, I think.
Daniel Ricciardo now making short films. So I'm not sure what sort of short films he's... Yeah. Not sure that perhaps more details.
Yeah, his YouTube channel's got little adventure films all over it.
Oh, has it? Okay, I haven't seen any of those. You know that he's going to be in the media. You know he's got that personality. He's got that flair to him. Some of his sports stuff from a few years ago that he was doing with one of the West Coast Eagles guys who was a mate of his was quite funny and really really entertaining. So yeah, so that's good. So we've got not a lot. As I said, not a lot coming up on the weekend. Don't know. SB saying about A1GP might be making a comeback. That would be interesting. Yeah. I don't know about that, but I actually liked the A1GP when they brought it to Australia. We went up to Eastern Creek, and I really liked it. I thought the cars were really good. Though they reminded me a lot of the old Formula 5000s. They were big, they were noisy, they were powerful. And there were lots and lots of people at the track out at Eastern Creek that we spoke to who had never been to a motor race in their life before. There was a whole bunch of, we were filming on the corner going in through the sweeper at the end of the main straight, and there was a huge bunch of Lebanese people there because there was a Team Lebanon, and we were talking to some of them, and they said, "Oh, we've never been to a car race in our life, know nothing about it, but Lebanon is competing, so we're here supporting Lebanon." And there were lots of little groups like that. So Stuart's got Stuart brought up Daniel Ricciardo's YouTube channel. So if you haven't, have a look at Daniel's YouTube channel. Yeah, I'll just throw that up a full screen on that so we can have a look. What's he got there? Okay, horsing around in Texas, the brakes.
Well,
okay,
some of those the marketing things he's done with Red Bull and
things. Yeah. Well, he's got one with sort of undercut. He's got the Optus one there. So so I think a lot of them. It would seem a lot of them are sort of. Thinly disguised advertorials, but I'll have a look at that. I haven't seen too many of those. So there you go. Okay, so look, unless somebody's got anything else to sort of talk about, as coming up this weekend, historic Winton, they're popping back into back into action. If you haven't been up to Historic Winton, it's a really great meeting up there because they've got the bikes as well as the cars, and they also have the car park is a car show in itself, a bit like Phillip Island, but you get a lot of really interesting cars, a lot of fascinating, lots of trucks and things like tractors and things like that because it's a rural setting. So you get it's a real carnival atmosphere. So it's a great meeting to. End up there. Mark's saying Enchanted is film. I'm not sure. Is that the title of the film? Perhaps Stuart can have a search for Enchanted. Daniel Ricciardo.
Enchant. Oh no, Enchant. Smell the Roses. That's the first one there. That looks to be. Is it Kristen Bell? I think is the name of the actor. Hang on. If I do open in a new one, and it should open with the. And of course, it's going to play. Oh no, there we go. And just hit our F11 key so we go full screen. Make sure there's nothing untoward in the suggestions because my internet is unfiltered. There we go. And I'm not going to press play on that one.
Yes, Kristen Bell, very, very talented and very, very funny. Used to be very, very good with Craig Ferguson on the Late Show. Very entertaining.
Oh, hilarious! But Ferguson was a great host.
Oh, and the best.
There were a couple of, shall we say, the young ladies who cut loose with him because they knew that he was being funny.
Yes, you probably wouldn't get away with it nowadays, but when you have a look at some of the stuff, he was the master flirt, and there were plenty of his guests flirting back with him as well. It's very easy.
They were taking it as the joke, as to have some fun and not getting serious. There's a couple, or there's one who actually swapped places as a host because she hosts a morning show, so she ended up interviewing him, and he was sitting. It's hilarious.
Yeah, he was very good. It's very easy to fall down the Craig Ferguson rabbit hole. I mean, you'll see something. Darren McAuliffe, who's a part of our In Pit Lane crew, is a big fan, and he will sort of pop something up on the Facebook page, and you go to that one, and then you see another suggestion. Oh, I haven't seen that, or I haven't seen that for a while, and suddenly you look at it, and it's 4:00 in the morning, but you've been well and truly entertained.
And I should just remind you that you've worked in the same studio as Craig Ferguson.
Have I really? What has Craig done?
Craig once appeared on Under Melbourne Tonight.
What, as Big Hitler?
No, as in came in as a guest comedian while he was doing a tour. This is going back to the early 90s.
Oh, okay, because I know he toured.
Before he was really big.
I know he toured out here because he had the character Bing Hitler, and he toured that extensively, and came out for a lot of Melbourne comedy festivals. And he talks about it. As we know, he dried out, but he talks about his time in the Melbourne Comedy Festival as being a particularly alcohol-fueled journey. Let us say. But,
yeah.
But anyway, look, we're talking about comedians. What if Stuart's found something? Have we?
Yeah. Just for those who want to do their own YouTube search, on Craig Ferguson, Carrie Keegan.
Carrie Keegan. Okay, well now I'll start. See, that's another reason to wrap this up because I'm going to watch that now. I've probably seen it before. But...
the horse.
Oh, everybody danced with the Secretariat. I mean, Secretariat. The horse was brilliant. Loved that. But as I said, not a lot. Coming up tomorrow on the show, we're talking bikes on In Pit Lane. If you didn't see us record the program last night, the Victorian Road Racing Championship is up at Broadford. Not this weekend, but next weekend. And I went down to Phillip Island last year, and it was it's a great series, very, very professionally run. Lots of big names were a part of it, particularly in the superbike class. People like Ant West and a whole bunch of sort of names that you would know from the Australian superbike scene. They were Wayne Maxwell and all those guys. They were all down there and they were all racing. It was fantastic, very high standard, great racing, great atmosphere, and of course the admission is free. This is the good thing about the state series on the bikes. Absolutely free to wander in and have a look at it. So head up. If you've got nothing to do, of course, as we said this week, down at Phillip Island, the Victorian State Series, having a look at the entry lists. A bit disappointing in quite a few categories. Improved production still with pretty good numbers. Not bad in Formula Ford. They've also got the Toyota 86 Scholarship Series as part of it as well, which is interesting. I'm not sure how I feel about that, actually. Having sort of like a professional or semi-professional category coming in, and it's almost like buying time on Channel 31. I mean, sort of they're coming in and pushing aside the regulars, to get in. But they've got it's a very big field and a number of top young drivers in there as well, including Clay Richards, who is going to race TCR coming up in the next round at Winton. He's going to race one of the Melbourne Performance Centre Audis up there at the meeting in a couple of weeks' time, which is looking like a really, really good meeting if you want to go up for that one, the Speed Series, because you've got the TCR, but you've also got the National Sports Sedans as well. Haven't seen an entry list for that already, but you would assume, and I think this is one of the reasons why the State Series sports sedan fields have been so disappointing this year. I think there's a lot of people have decided that we're gonna do the National Series this year. So I think it'll be a pretty good field.
There's a bit of trivia there, Brett. Have you ever taken a drive or a ride around the Broadford track?
No, I haven't. No, I haven't driven around.
Okay, the elevation changes is there's a short straight that leads up onto the main straight, which is at the middle height compared to the back straight, which is climbing. It'd be 6-7 story building. The hump in the back of Conrod would be half the elevation change of what Broadford is. It's this tight, twisty track that goes up and down, and it's absolutely fabulous. It's, I mean,
I went there
you
once.
can literally see the entire track. From the bottom, you can see where the bikes are going past on the entire track.
Yeah, that's what we were talking about. You'll see tomorrow night with the guys. They were saying that the only time I went up there for anything, they were going to launch Rallycross there. Bob Watson was trying to get Rallycross up and running there, and they were going to do it until the bike guys got wind of it, and they went, "Whoa, hang on a second. There's going to be a lot of mud and a lot of dirt and a lot of crap coming onto our lovely racing surface. Thank you very much from your rally cars. So we'd rather you don't do that." So it never happened. But I know
there's
that
some footage of some Formula Fords going around there, and running mud across that track would be a travesty because of how good, how twisty it is, and how good
the supercarts run there
with light engines.
The supercarts run there as well, and I've seen some in-car footage from the supercarts, and that looks really good. It's a bit like Baskerville. As I said, when we went to Baskerville last year for the historics, I was really surprised at just how steep that was. I knew it was undulating, but I didn't know how undulating it was. And when Kevin Barton described it as a miniature Mount Panorama, he wasn't far short of that. It was that's another great little circuit for a whole bunch of things. So. Yeah,
you should take a note of Paul Van Der Acker's
I've got that.
there.
Yeah, turns for those of you listening. Turn 3 at the end of the back straight isn't called Crash Corner for nothing. So
there's a fair bit of runoff there.
So so if you want to go, but as I said, if you want to go up, it's if you're on that side of the city. I mean, as I was saying to the guys last night, we might get up there. I'm working this weekend on a couple of other things, and a couple of paid gigs, but so I can't get up there. But so I can't go to either Winton or Phillip Island. But the week after, depending on what happens, I wouldn't mind trying to get up there and doing some filming up there. And we've also spoken to the guys at the State Series. They've sort of shown some interest in us coming up and doing some more regular footage and sort of getting behind and supporting the show and getting some regular coverage for the series, because it's really great racing and really high standards. So there's another one from Paul saying another corner called Schoolhouse Corner because there's an old portable classroom building. Okay, well, yeah. So head up to Broadford next weekend. It sounds like fun. Okay, I think we're going to wrap that up,
you
guys.
happen to run into a shall we say a middle-aged woman wearing girl rider stuff, that would be my sister. See if she's got any merch to sell.
Okay, that's a plug there
Yeah,
for
subscribe, buy the merch.
yeah, buy the merch. Yeah, Mad Cow Mark say last Broadford's a Hell's Angels concert. No, I didn't do the Broadford Hell's Angels concert. I always wondered that was a big thing in the 80s and 90s was the Broadford Hell's Angels concert. Okay, everybody, I think we're going to wrap it up there. The Monaco Grand Prix, whatever we watch. Yes, we'll be watching the Monaco Grand Prix. Remember, on Monday, the Indianapolis 500 as well at some ungodly hour of the morning. I believe that the Carb Day practice is going to be shown on... the final practice is going to be shown on Stan Sport as well. So if you've got a subscription to Stan Sport, I'm looking at... Because if you subscribe now, if I subscribe this weekend... I'll get the Indianapolis 500, but it'll still be up and running. I'll also get Le Mans as well because they're doing the coverage of Le Mans again this year. So if you want to sort of shell out, but it is $25 once you because you got to add the main station, which I'll never ever watch. But anyway. Before my voice dies completely, I think we better say goodbye. Oh, speaking of voice dying completely, watch tomorrow night. If you love heavy metal music, if you love hard rock, watch tomorrow night's show. Our band from this week, the guys from Dark Thorn were fantastic. And guys, thanks a lot for your kind words on Facebook today. Really appreciate it. We had a lot of fun, didn't we, Pete?
Yep.
It was very loud and very and fun. Okay, well, we'll see you. We'll see you next week. We'll have more to talk about next week. We'll have Monaco. We'll have the Indy 500. Who knows what else we'll have to chat about as well, the State Series. So everybody have a great weekend, and we'll see you next week on Full Course Yellow. And remember, in Pit Lane tomorrow night, our final studio show for a few weeks, for a few months actually. Tomorrow night, 9 o'clock, and then at 9:30 we'll have the extended version. We'll get 2 songs from Dark Thorn. And personally, I don't know about you, Pete, I thought this bonus song, Hell Ride, was better than the last one. They were both good, but I really liked that second one.
Yep.
Okay, well, we'll see you next week, everyone. Catch you later.
Hey, we can swear again.